Good afternoon. Just want to stop through for a few minutes, even if that. Still reading a book on spiritual warfare, and I come across this word. It's called prima facia. You can look that word up. You can Google it, and it's pretty much saying, you know, a person sees something they like, and they see it, and they go for it. Just like they say, on sight. It's what it is. And like I say all the time with spiritual warfare, the devil knows exactly what it is he has to lay down in order to make you tick. So he knows exactly what you like. I want you to understand that the game that he plays, it's a wild game, and he will stop at nothing. Satan will stop at nothing to get your soul. I want you to understand that. But that word prima facie, when I think of that word, it makes me think about self-discipline. And sometimes, we struggle with discipline, and self-discipline especially. And, along with self-discipline, I feel like an accountability goes hand in hand. We have to be able to discipline ourselves, because, you could tell a child no, and you can pop their hand and you can spank them, however you choose to discipline a child. But once you get to a certain age, there's nobody there to guide you in the right direction. So if you're not under God's direction, you're going to be a ship without a sail. You're going to be gone with the wind if you don't have any direction, if you're not looking to God to get direction. And I say this, and I tell people that a man never reaches full maturity until he develops a relationship with God. And I say that because your parents can only take you so far, and they're only going to take you so far. And after a while, it's time to pull off the training wheels, and you got to figure out how to ride the bike of life for yourself. They teach you you learn how to crawl, you learn how to walk, they hold your hand, and eventually you just got to take off. So, when you tell a child, say, hey, don't touch that, it's hot. You know what I'm saying? And they don't touch it. And sometimes they go against the grain and they decide to touch it. And then when they're crying, you got to say, hey, look, I told you not to touch it. In your adult life, there's nobody there to tell you what you can and what you can't do. But see, here's the thing where I feel like where the church is hurting at is because they're not giving out the proper direction that people need. They're not steering people in the right directions. And it's simply because in a lot of these churches, the head is off. So, when the head is off, the body is off. Like I said, I much rather help a person than hurt them. And, it's a lot of people that's going to church and they're receiving, getting hurt at church. And a lot of times that causes people to turn their back on church. And not only turn their back on church, they also turn their back on God. So back to what I was saying, staying on topic, self-discipline and accountability. You have to be able to take accountability for your actions. I say it all the time. I tell people you gotta be willing to take it up against the chin. If you're gonna do something that you feel like you're big enough and bold enough to do, you gotta be willing to take it up against the chin. So, if somebody told you don't do that, you shouldn't do that, don't do it. But this day and time, we need to be seeking directions from God. For the Bible says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Lean not into thine own understanding, but in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. Now, I know one thing about God. He don't slack in his promises. See, some men, they count slack. That's on them. They can count that. That's fine. But God doesn't slacken his promises. Now, me or you can make a promise and we might not keep it. But God made a promise. He's made promises and he's going to stand on his promises. So with that being said, you got to do your part. Get your direction from God. Stand on his word. You got to stand on the word. That's the only way you're going to be able to grow. The only way you're going to be able to become steadfast, unshakable, and unmovable. Back to my topic, prima facia. That means on sight. We have to have some type of self-discipline and hold ourselves accountable. We can't keep doing anything and everything under the sun. Control yourselves.